Yo, what's up guys? Mike here, coming at you from the mushroom farm, and I got a great video for you guys tonight. So tonight, we're going to talk about filter patches for mushroom cultivation, okay? Have you ever wondered what the best size is to use for what situation? Well, we're going to cover all that in this video. We're going to talk about grain spawn, bulk substrate, and when to apply what size filter patch for what situation. And I want to say, if you're new and you're just now tuning into this channel, my name's Mike. I'm a mushroom farmer. I've been farming gourmet mushrooms 9 years full time. Here's just a few shots of some of my grows over the years, but I basically take all these mushrooms here that I grow on my farm and I sell them at farmers markets and to high-end restaurants. We have over 260 videos on mushroom farming and mushroom cultivation on this channel. I'm doing daily uploads, monthly subscriber giveaways, so if you're into mushrooms and farming, make sure you click that subscribe button right now so you get more mushroom and farming videos like this in the future. But anyway, on to today's video. Like I said, we're going to talk about filter patches a little bit. So I've got some unicorn bags. These are actually 0.2 micron filter patches. I use these a lot on my farm. I also have some unicorn bag 0.5 micron filter patches. Okay, these are the XLS A bags right here. These ones right here, just so you know, these are 3T, extra thick. So I'm going to talk about what situations I use both of these in, because I use both of these on a regular basis, totally staples on my farm. Now I want to show you something else. This is essentially a jar for grain spawn. Okay, super low tech method, really easy method if you just want to make some jars, low investment too. So it's just got a polyfill filter patch, and this is a wide mouth mason jar, okay? So anyway, before I go over these, let's just kind of break this down a little bit and talk about it. Okay, so there's different situations that you're going to want to use one size filter patch over the other size filter patch, okay? Now first, we're just going to talk about bags, and then we're going to talk about that jar and kind of like how I set those jars up, all right? So anyway, first, let's talk about the spawn bag, right? So the 3T, basically this bag right here, this is essentially like what would be a 14A bulk substrate bag, okay? And I want to talk to you guys about on these unicorn bags, how they determine the filter patch and the name. Basically, any bag that they're making right now that has a T filter patch, it's the 0.2 micron, okay? And this is what I choose to use for all of my grain spawn, okay? So when I make my best no prep grain spawn recipe, if you guys haven't seen that, check it out. It's a super good recipe, but this is my go-to bag. And I like these extra thick ones just in case. And they actually, they sell two versions. I can't remember exactly what the thickness is on these, but they have this extra thick version, and I really like it a lot for my spawn bags, just because you definitely do not want any pinholes or anything accidentally making a hole in your spawn bag. And I feel like just these being super thick, it's extra protective, okay? So I'm a huge fan of it. Now, those of you who have not seen my best no prep grain spawn recipe, let me explain to you a quick recipe just so everybody has like an awesome, this is the best no prep grain spawn recipe, so you can't go wrong. My favorite recipe is 1500 milliliter millet, 1000 milliliter vermiculite. Basically, that's your dry ingredients. That will all go in the bag, okay? And then you add 1000 milliliters of water, all right? And basically what I like to do is I just take my hand and I mix it all together a little bit so that vermiculite will soak up all that water that you put in there. And it'll feel wet, you know, it'll feel good. But anyway, then I just fold the bags down, pressure cook them, 3 hours, 15 PSI, and you get the best no prep grain spawn. Now I want to say, if you do not have access to millet, Milo or sorghum works in place of millet in that recipe. You could swap it out directly for the other one, okay? So Milo or sorghum works perfect if you want to swap it out for millet, all right? Now I want to say, I had some people asking me about rice for spawn, and I've never personally used rice in that recipe. I might try it out though. I've been messing around with a lot of rice on the farm for my cordyceps cultivation. If you're new and you haven't checked out my cordyceps cultivation videos, check those out. I've got some really cool ones I put up recently. We've got some really awesome cordyceps grows going on right now. But I have not tried rice in this recipe, but it could work pretty good, honestly. I just have to give it a shot, or if anybody wants to experiment, give it a shot. If I do experiment, it's just going to be for the channel. That millet or the Milo, whatever you choose, it is my favorite. It is my go-to, okay? So I don't ever use anything else, to tell you the truth. Now, I also do want to say, if I didn't have millet or Milo available, how would I make my spawn? I would actually get oats and I would do a 24-hour soak. Basically just soak them for a day, okay? Strain them, and I would only strain them and let them drip dry for like 10 minutes, okay? I do not cook my grains whatsoever. I either do the no prep method or this soak method that I'm describing right now with the oats. But basically, I let those oats just kind of drip dry off, like I said, 10 minutes after a 24-hour soak. Then take a couple scoops of those oats, just start filling your bag up. You fill it up about, I don't know, about that full. Basically put in 5 pounds of grain, and then you'll pressure cook those oats for 3 hours at 15 psi, and that is another perfect way to make grain spawn, okay? So all of those methods right there that I just kind of outlined are my go-to ways when I make my grain spawn, okay? So anyway, grain spawn bag. Let's talk about bulk substrate, all right? So this is an XLSA bag, right? This basically makes a 10-pound bag of Master's Mix. People put anywhere from like 8 to 12 pounds in these, just depending on how full you make them and what your bulk substrate recipes look like. I always make a 60-40 Master's Mix for my bulk substrate. Now I want to explain the differences between these two filters here. So when you're making spawn, that's a much smaller filter patch. It is a 0.2 micron. This, for bulk substrate, check that out. Take a look at that. That's a 0.5. Now I'm going to show you these. I just want to show you them right next to each other in case you're new. You see how you can see a visual difference. The holes are bigger here, and this almost looks like there's almost no holes, but there's holes in there. They're just really small. So anyway, the 0.5 lets your bulk substrate breathe a little bit better. It allows for faster colonization, but you would not want to use a filter like this for spawn on a regular basis because you could let in a contaminant, whether it be mold or bacteria. It's going to be much more likely to pass through this filter patch than it would that one. But when you've already have really good colonized grain spawn, you've got nice sterilized or super pasteurized bulk substrate, inoculated with some grain spawn, this filter patch does the job perfectly, okay? It allows the bulk substrate to completely colonize, and then it'll be ready to fruit in just a couple weeks or whatever strains you're growing, you know, but I love these filter patches. So this is my go-to for my bulk substrate, and it also works. Now on my farm, I make, like I said, 10-pound bags, but if you're making 5-pound bags or something, the bag you would use from Unicorn Bags is called the 14A, basically. So it's got the A filter patch, just the smaller bag, the 5-pound bag. This is essentially, like I said, the 10 to 12-pound bag, and you got that 0.5 micron filter patch, so this is the XLSA bag. All right, so anyway, let's talk about this grain spawn jar a little bit, what we got going on. So this is a wide mouth 1-quart mason jar, okay? These are cool. You can fit, like, if you have just a little 16-quart Presto pressure cooker, you can fit 7 of these easily in a pressure cooker, so you can cook a significant amount of grain just with some jars. Check this out. I use the wide mouth, and let me explain. I use the wide mouth on grains a lot of times just because they're easier to clean. Sometimes on the liquid cultures, I'll use the narrow mouth. So if you see me with a bunch of narrow mouths, I actually like those for LC. And we'll talk about that in other videos, and I'll talk about LC lids and stuff like that in some other videos. I'm playing around with setting up an aeration setup for LC right now. So we got some cool stuff for that coming up. But anyway, like I said, for grain spawn, I like these wide mouth jars just because you can clean them out easy. It's easy to get that grain out of there. And basically, this filter, let me explain. This is a polyfill filter, okay? I'm just going to pull it out. And I just took the lid, and I just drilled a 3/8 hole in it. I didn't even deburr it or anything. Just did it nice and fast. And then basically, you just stick this polyfill through it, pull it through, and this is a really nice, low-tech grain spawn method, okay? Check that out. Okay, boom, just like that. That's all you need. You basically fill the jar up. You can use the oats that you soak for 24 hours, and I would fill it up about 3/4 of the way if you're going to do oats like that. Now, if you want to use millet, this is a perfect millet recipe, okay? So I'm just going to explain. You could put in 300 milliliters of millet, dry grain, okay, with the holes on. People ask me a lot of times, do I use hold or unhold? I basically just use the millet that is typically used for bird seed. The millet that we have available here where I'm at in Colorado, is called Proso millet, okay? So sometimes it's also white millet or pearl millet is what you might find available nearby you, but we have what's called Proso millet here. I put 300 milliliters volumetrically in here, and then I just put 150 milliliters of water volumetrically in here. Put the lid on the jar, just like that. And then what you do, I'm not going to show you right now, but you just wrap aluminum foil over the top of it, pressure cook for 2.5 hours, somewhere in that zone at 15 psi. I usually go 2.5, but cook it at 15 psi at 2.5 hours. Grains will be totally sterile, no problem. Perfectly hydrated, like I said, 300 milliliters of millet, 150 milliliters of water. It is just foolproof, okay? So you can rock that. Now I want to say, that best no prep grain spawn recipe that I was talking about for my bags, here's what I personally do. So just to kind of re-talk about what I was talking about earlier with that recipe, I use 1,500 milliliters of millet, 1,000 milliliters of vermiculite, 1,000 milliliters water, okay? Now, for me to make that, what I actually do is I take millet and I put millet in a big tote. I put in 3 parts millet, basically, 2 parts vermiculite, all right? And I make this big bulk batch, and I can take 300 milliliters of that. You can just put that in here, the millet and verm mixture, and then put in 150 milliliters of water, and it's perfect. And I know somebody is going to ask me, because if you do the math on that, the hydration is a little bit different between the recipes, but the vermiculite acts as a buffer, and I just feel like it brings this up to the perfect hydration, okay? So regardless of whether you have just straight millet or the millet plus verm mix like I always do here on my farm, you can still do 300 milliliters volume of your dry material, 150 milliliters of water, and you're going to get a perfectly cooked grain spawn, okay? And like I said, 2.5 hours, 15 psi. Make sure you put aluminum foil over these lids, because if you do not, it will allow moisture to get in through this polyfill filter, okay? And if you're wondering, how do you inoculate these? All you have to do is remove the aluminum foil, kind of move the filter out of the way, and you can flame the needle, stick the needle right through here, okay? Squirt the LC directly into the grain. I put the aluminum foil back on, give it a good shake, okay? Shake it up real good. Keep that aluminum foil on there, and that aluminum foil will act as like another protective barrier while this is colonizing up, okay? You don't need to worry about gas exchange or anything. The gas exchange is going to be just fine. These work great. But if you want a good low-tech option and you're not using bags and you don't need quite the volume of grain spawn that a bag produces, you could totally use these and they work great. Now, I want to say I'm going to make a video still. A lot of people were asking about making a video about how to use my master pack. I want to make a really in-depth video about that, so I just didn't get into it tonight, but we're going to do that tomorrow. I want to try some cool things with the editing and stuff for that video just to make it a good video. But anyway, we're going to cook up some grain just for that master pack video showing you guys how to use your liquid cultures most effectively. But anyway, if you have any questions on this video or anything I went over tonight, just be sure to drop it down below in that comment section. I will totally answer all your questions. If you have any other suggested videos, be sure to drop that below in the comment section. I got plenty of cool videos coming, but keep those suggestions coming. I really appreciate it. But hopefully you guys found this video helpful and informative. If you did, please drop this video a like. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But that's all I got for you on this one, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.